Hello everyone, welcome to my channel. I am MK Jabintaj. Today introducing you imaginary mathematics, Jabin mathematics and JMAS mathematics. We usually use decimal numbers, hexadecimal numbers, binary numbers, octal numbers, etc. in performing mathematical calculations. In the similar way, we can use imaginary numbers, Jabin numbers and JMAS numbers. The decimal numbers and their corresponding imaginary Jabin and JMAS numbers I have given, see that, and in position of decimal numbers by using these corresponding numbers we can perform all operations which we perform by using decimal numbers to get respective mathematics, and by using mixture of these numbers we can perform calculations to get mixed mathematics. Here imaginary number is equal to root of -1. Jabin number, that is small letter j, is equal to root of -10, and capital letter J, that is JMAS number, is equal to root of -11. These are constant values. Not only in maths, whenever decimal numbers are used, these corresponding numbers can be used to perform the mathematics. Now let us see the table of corresponding numbers. Hello everyone, welcome to my channel. I am MK Jabintaj. Today in this video I am giving you the knowledge about the 5th module of the subject Computer Networks for 5th SEM CSE CBCS BTU students. I am dedicating this video to all the students all over the world. Now let us see Module 5, Multimedia Networking. Multimedia networking applications. A multimedia network application can be defined as any application that employs audio or video. Properties of video: high bit rate. Video distributed over the internet use 100 kbps for low quality video conferencing, 3 mbps for streaming high definition HD movies. The higher the bit rate, better the image quality and better the overall user viewing experience. A video can be compressed, thereby trading off video quality with bit rate. A video is a sequence of images displayed at a constant rate. An uncompressed digital image consists of an array of pixels. Each pixel is encoded into a number of bits to represent luminance and color. There are two types of redundancy in video. An image that consists of mostly white space has a high degree of redundancy. These images can be efficiently compressed without sacrificing image quality. Second, temporal redundancy. Temporal redundancy reflects repetition from image to subsequent image. For example, if image and subsequent image are same, re-encoding of subsequent image can be avoided. Properties of audio. PCM, pulse code modulation, is a technique used to change an analog signal to digital data. Digitization. PCM consists first encoder at the sender and decoder at the receiver. PCM encoder. Digital audio has lower bandwidth requirements than video. Consider how analog audio is converted to a digital signal. The analog audio signal is sampled at some fixed rate. This operation is referred to as sampling. For example, 8,000 samples per second. The value of each sample is an arbitrary real number. Each sample is then rounded to one of a finite number of values. This process is called quantization. The number of such finite values is called as quantization values. The number of quantization values is typically a power of 2. For example, 256, that is 28 quantization values. Each of quantization values is represented by a fixed number of bits. Bit representations of all values are then concatenated to form digital representation of the signal. This process is called encoding. PCM decoder. For playback through audio speakers, the digital signal can be converted back to an analog signal. This process is called decoding. The sound quality may be noticeably degraded. The decoded signal can better approximate the original analog signal by increasing sampling rate and number of quantization values. Thus, there is a trade-off between quality of the decoded signal and bit rate and storage requirements of the digital signal. Types of multimedia network applications. Three broad categories of multimedia applications: streaming stored audio or video, conversational voice or video over IP, and streaming live audio or video. Streaming stored audio and video. The underlying medium is pre-recorded video, for example a movie. These pre-recorded videos are placed on servers. The users send requests to the server to view the videos on demand. Nowadays many internet companies provide streaming video, for example YouTube. Three key distinguishing features of streaming stored video. The client begins video playout within few seconds after it begins receiving the video from the server. At the same time, the client will be playing out from one location in the video. The client will be receiving later parts of the video from the server. This technique avoids having to download the entire video file before playout begins. The media is pre-recorded, so the user may pass, reposition or fast forward through video content. The response time should be less than a few seconds. Once playout of the video begins, it should proceed according to the original timing of the recording. The data must be received from the server in time for its playout at the client, otherwise users experience video frame skipping or freezing. Now let us see conversational voice and voice over IP. Real-time conversational voice over the internet is often referred to as internet telephony. It is also commonly called voice over IP. VoIP. Conversational video includes the video of the participants as well as their voices. Most of the today's voice applications allow users to create conferences with 3 or more participants. Most internet companies provide voice applications. For example, Skype and Google Talk. Two parameters are particularly important for voice applications: timing considerations and tolerance of data loss. Timing considerations are important because voice applications are highly delay sensitive. Loss tolerant means occasional loss only causes occasional glitches in audio playback, and these losses can be partially fully hidden. Streaming live audio and video. These applications are similar to broadcast radio except that transmission takes place over internet. These applications allow a user to receive a live radio transmitted from any corner of the world. For example, live cricket commentary. Today, thousands of radio stations around the world are broadcasting content over the internet. Streaming stored video. Pre-recorded videos are placed on servers. Users send requests to these servers to view the videos on demand. The media is pre-recorded, so the user may pass, reposition or fast forward through video content. Three categories of applications: UDP streaming, HTTP streaming and adaptive HTTP streaming. A main characteristics of video streaming is the extensive use of the client-side buffering. Two advantages of client-side buffering. Client-side buffering can mitigate effects of varying end-to-end delays. This can mitigate effects of varying amounts of available bandwidth between server and client. UDP streaming. The server transmits video at a rate that matches the client's video consumption rate. The server transmits the video chunks over UDP at a steady rate. UDP does not employ a congestion control mechanism, therefore the server can push packets into the network at the video consumption rate. Typically, UDP streaming uses a small client-side buffer, RTP, real-time transport protocol. Using RTP, the server encapsulates the video chunks within transport packets. The client and server also maintain a control connection over which the client sends commands such as pass, resume and reposition. The RTSP real-time streaming protocol is a popular open protocol for a control connection. Disadvantages: First, UDP streaming can fail to provide continuous playout of varying amount of available bandwidth, costly and complex. A media control server is required to process client to server interactivity requests and to track client state for each ongoing client session. This increases the overall cost and complexity of deploying a large scale application. Many firewalls are configured to block UDP traffic. This prevents the users behind the firewalls from receiving the video. HTTP streaming. The video is stored in an HTTP server as an ordinary file with a specific URL. It works as follows. When a user wants to see the video, the client establishes a TCP connection with the server and issues an HTTP GET request for that URL. Then the server responds with the video file within an HTTP response message. On client side, the bytes are collected in a client application buffer. Once number of bytes in this buffer exceeds a specific threshold, the client begins playback. Advantages: no costly and complex streaming over HTTP avoids the need for a media control server RTSP. This reduces the cost of deploying a large scale applications. No firewall problem. The use of HTTP over TCP also allows the videos to traverse firewalls and NATs more easily. Prefetching video. The client downloads the video at a rate higher than the consumption rate. This prefetched video is stored in the client application buffer. Most of video streaming applications use HTTP streaming, for example YouTube. Now let us see Dash. The video is encoded into several different versions. Each version has a different bitrate and a different quality level. Two main tasks. The client dynamically requests video chunks from the different versions, low and high. When the available bandwidth is high, the client selects chunks from a high rate version. For example, fiber connections can receive a high quality version. When the available bandwidth is low, the client naturally selects from a low rate version. For example, 3G connections can receive a low quality version. The client adapts to the available bandwidth if end-to-end bandwidth changes during session. This feature is particularly important for mobile users. The mobile users see their bandwidth fluctuate as they move with respect to the base stations. HTTP server stores following files. Each video version with a different URL manifest file provides a URL for each version along with its bitrate. Here is how it works. First, the client requests the manifest file and learns about the various versions. Then the client selects one chunk at a time by specifying URL and byte range in an HTTP GET request message. 3. While downloading chunks, the client measures the received bandwidth and runs a rate determination algorithm. If measured bandwidth is high, client will choose a chunk from high rate version. If measured bandwidth is low, client will choose a chunk from low rate version. Therefore, Dash allows the client to freely switch among different quality levels. Content distribution networks. Motivation of CDN. The streaming video service can be provided is as follows. Build a single massive data center, store all videos in the data center and stream the videos directly from the data center to clients worldwide. The three major problems with the above approach: more delay. If links provides a throughput lesser than consumption rate, the end-to-end throughput will also be below the consumption rate. This results in freezing delays for the user. Network bandwidth is wasted. A popular video may be sent many times over the same links. Single point of the failure: if the data center goes down, it cannot distribute any video streams. CDN types. CDN manages servers in multiple geographically distributed locations, stores copies of the videos in its servers, and attempts to direct each user request to a CDN that provides the best user experience. The CDN may be a private CDN or a third-party CDN. A private CDN is owned by the content provider itself. For example, Google's CDN distributes YouTube videos. A third-party CDN distributes content on the behalf of multiple content provider CDNs. CDN operation. When a browser wants to retrieve a specific video, the CDN intercepts the request. Then the CDN determines a suitable server cluster for the client and redirects the client's request to the desired server. Most CDNs take advantage of DNS to intercept and redirect requests. CDN operation is illustrated as shown in the figure 5.2. See the figure here. Voice over IP. Real-time voice over the internet is often referred to as internet telephony. It is also commonly called voice over IP. Limitations of best effort IP service. The internet's network layer protocol IP provides best effort service. The IP makes best effort to move each datagram from source to destination. The IP does not guarantee delivery of the packet to the destination. Three main challenges to the design of real-time applications: packet loss, packet delay, and packet jitter. Packet loss. By default, most existing VoIP applications run over UDP. The UDP segment is encapsulated in an IP datagram. The datagram passes through router buffers in the path from sender to receiver. Problem. There is a possibility that one or more buffers are full. In this case, the arriving IP datagrams may be discarded. Possible solution: loss can be eliminated by sending the packets over TCP rather than over UDP. However, retransmissions are unacceptable for real-time applications. They increase delay. Packet loss results in a reduction of sender's transmission rate, leading to buffer starvation. End-to-end delay. End-to-end delay is the sum of following delays: transmission, processing, and queuing delays in routers. Propagation delays in links and processing delays in end systems. For VoIP application, delays smaller than 150 msecs are not perceived by a human listener. Delays between 150 and 400 msecs can be acceptable but are not ideal, and delays exceeding 400 msecs can seriously hinder the interactivity in voice conversations. Typically, the receiving side will discard any packets that are delayed more than certain threshold, for example more than 400 msecs. Packet jitter. Jitter refers to varying queuing delays that a packet experiences in the network's router. If the receiver ignores the presence of jitter and plays out audio chunks, then the resulting audio quality can easily become unintelligible. Jitter can often be removed by using sequence numbers, timestamps, and a play out delay. Removing jitter at the receiver for audio. For VoIP application, receiver must provide periodic playout of voice chunks in presence of random jitter. This is typically done by combining the following two mechanisms: prepending each chunk with a timestamp. The sender attaches each chunk with the time at which the chunk was generated, delaying playout of chunks at the receiver. The playout delay of the received chunks must be long, so the most of the packets are received before their scheduled playout times. This playout delay can either be fixed throughout the duration of the session and vary adaptively during the session lifetime. Recovering from the packet loss. Loss recovery schemes attempt to preserve acceptable audio quality in the presence of packet loss. Here, packet loss is defined in a two broad sense: A packet is lost if the packet never arrives at the receiver, or a packet is lost if the packet arrives after its scheduled playout time. VoIP applications often use loss anticipation schemes. Here we consider two types of loss anticipation schemes: forwarding error control FEC and interleaving FEC. The basic idea of FEC: redundant information is added to the original packet stream. The redundant information can be used to reconstruct approximations of some of the lost packets. Two FEC mechanisms: block coding. A redundant encoded chunk is sent after every n chunk. The redundant chunk is obtained by exclusive ORing the n original chunks. If any one packet is in a group is lost, the receiver can fully reconstruct the lost packet. Disadvantages: if two or more packets in a group are lost, receiver cannot reconstruct the lost packets. Increase the playout delay. This is because the receiver must wait to receive an entire group of packets before it can begin playout. A lower resolution redundant information. A lower resolution audio stream is sent as the redundant information. For example, the sender creates a nominal audio stream and corresponding low resolution low bit rate audio stream. The low bit rate stream is referred to as the redundant stream. The sender constructs the nth packet by taking the nth chunk from the nominal stream and appending the nth chunk to the n-1st chunk from the redundant stream. Advantage: whenever there is a packet loss, receiver can hide the loss by playing out low bit rate chunk. Protocols for real-time conservational applications. Real-time applications are very popular. For example, VoIP and video conferencing. Two standard bodies are working for real-time applications: IETF and ITU. Both standards are enjoying widespread implementations in industry products. RTP can be used for transporting common formats such as MP3 for sound and MPEG for video. It can also be used for transporting proprietary sound and video formats. Today, RTP enjoys widespread implementation in many products and research prototypes. It is also complementary to other important real-time interactive protocols such as SIP. RTP basics. RTP runs on the top of UDP. The RTP packet is composed RTP header audio chunk. The header includes a type of audio encoding sequence number and timestamp. The application appends each chunk of the audio data with an RTP header. Here is how it works. At sender side, a media chunk is encapsulated within an RTP packet. Then the packet is encapsulated within a UDP segment. Finally, the UDP segment is handed over to IP. At receiving side, the RTP packet is extracted from the UDP segment. Then the media chunk is extracted from the RTP packet. Finally, the media chunk is passed to the media player for decoding and rendering. If an application uses RTP, then the application easily interoperates with other multimedia application. For example, if two different companies use RTP in their VoIP product, then users will be able to communicate. SIP session initiation protocol is an open and lightweight protocol. Main functions of SIP: it provides mechanisms for establishing calls between a caller and a callee over an IP network. It allows the caller to notify the callee that it wants to start a call. It allows the participants to agree on media encodings. It also allows participants to end calls. It provides mechanisms for the caller to determine the current IP address of the callee. It provides mechanism for call management such as adding new media streams during the call, changing the encoding during the call, inviting new participants during the call transfer and call holding. Setting up a call to a known IP address SIP call establishment process is illustrated as shown in the figure. See the figure here. Consider an example. Alice wants to call Bob. Alice's and Bob's PCs are both equipped with SIP-based software for making and receiving phone calls. The following events occur. An SIP session begins when Alice sends Bob an invite message. This invite message is sent over UDP to the well-known port of 5060 for SIP. The invite message includes an identifier for Bob and an indication of the Alice's current IP address, and an indication that Alice desires to receive audio which is encoded in the format AVP0. Then Bob sends an SIP response message which resembles an HTTP response message. The response message is sent over UDP to the well-known port 5060 for SIP. The response message includes 200 0K, an indication of Bob's current IP address, an indication that Bob desires to receive audio which is encoded in the format AVP3. Then Alice sends Bob an SIP acknowledgement message. Finally, Bob and Alice can talk. 3 key characteristics of SIP. SIP is an out-of-band protocol. The SIP message and the media data use different sockets for sending and receiving. The SIP messages are ASCII readable and resembles HTTP messages. SIP requires all messages to be acknowledged, so it can run over UDP or TCP.